Is it possible for an idol who has just recovered from illness to still stand tall and give full energy for the fans? This is the very question that suddenly emerged after a live broadcast lasting only 7 minutes shocked millions of ARMY around the world. In the short video, BTS members conveyed that they are working hard to prepare a new album. However, what touched hearts the most was the statement about Jimin, who, despite being unwell, still chose to contribute in order to uphold the spirit and dedication for ARMY. Is this a form of sincere sacrifice, or a carefully designed communication strategy aimed at stirring public emotion? The sudden live broadcast on the Weverse platform immediately sparked widespread discussion. In just 7 minutes, BTS succeeded in delivering a message filled with meaning. The members, with serious yet passionate expressions, emphasized that the journey toward the new album is not an easy one. They admitted to facing various challenges, including Jin's health condition that is not fully stable. Yet it was precisely at that moment that emotions peaked. The public witnessed how a group member who was unwell was still highlighted as an important part of the collective effort. Does this not raise deep questions about the boundary between dedication and sacrifice? The reaction from ARMY was immediate and emotional. Hashtags related to this brief live instantly dominated trending topics on Twitter, TikTok, and even YouTube. Many fans expressed heartfelt messages, saying they felt touched yet worried. Some emphasized their pride in Jin's commitment, while others questioned, should Jin's health be prioritized over work demands? This question divided emotions into two poles, admiration and concern. Does this phenomenon not reveal how a brief video narrative can trigger a massive debate in the digital public sphere? In the context of the global entertainment industry, moments like this cannot be separated from communication strategy. A short live, with compact narration, can produce wide resonance. However, it must be examined more deeply. Is the message truly born from factual circumstances, or was it designed to create dramatic effect? Pop culture observers stress that fan engagement is often blended with communication dramaturgy, where every word, expression, and visual detail can serve as a tool to shape public perception. Should we not ask, then, was Jimin truly compelled to contribute despite being unwell? Or was this narrative deliberately framed to spark empathy? Undeniably, BTS is known as a group that always emphasizes collective hard work and loyalty to ARMY. The statements in the live seem to reaffirm that identity. Yet when the public learned that Jimin was not in good health, the emotional impact multiplied. Most ARMY felt valued because BTS showed that the effort for the new album was done wholeheartedly, even at the risk of health. But behind all this, is there not another risk, namely the glorification of sacrifice that could be considered dangerous? Will fans always see sacrifice as love, or should they also be critical of the negative consequences on their idol's health? Social media became a grand stage for this debate. On one hand, fans flooded platforms with words of love, prayers, and moral support. On the other hand, skeptical voices emerged, stressing the need to separate fact from potentially constructed narratives. Did Jimin really work hard, or was his name only mentioned to build dramatic effect? Asked several Twitter accounts. Discussions like this are crucial because they encourage audiences not only to be swept away by emotion, but also to develop a critical stance. Is this not what should be the main goal in facing every wave of digital information? Furthermore, this opens a space for reflection on how the public should respond to information from unverified sources. It should be noted that information about this short live circulated widely through video clips on TikTok, re-uploads on YouTube, and screenshots on Twitter. Yet the authenticity and completeness of the narrative still require further verification. In other words, what spreads on social media may not fully reflect reality. Is it appropriate, then, for the public to immediately consider this moment as valid proof of Jimin and BTS's dedication? Or would it be wiser to wait for official clarification from the agency? These are the very questions that should remain alive in the minds of every reader and viewer. In this era of information overload, skepticism is the key. Not every piece of news, video, or article that touches the heart can be guaranteed as true. In fact, the more dramatic a narrative is, the greater the possibility that there is fabrication involved. Are we truly seeing facts, or are we merely consuming stories designed to influence our emotions? Thus, the 7-minute live is not just an entertainment moment, but also a mirror of how the public reacts to information. Will ARMY continue to be carried away by emotion without questioning factual validity? Or will they become a critical community able to balance love with vigilance? This question is highly relevant, because ultimately, critical thinking is what determines whether a fandom can withstand manipulation of information. Now, as discussions continue to flow across platforms, one thing is certain: collective reflection is necessary. BTS may always be the world's spotlight, but our task as the audience is not only to be moved, but also to analyze. So, is it true that Jin, despite being ill, is still working hard for the new album? Or is this narrative merely part of a strategy designed to build deeper emotional bonds? The final answer may never be simple, but our critical stance will always be the main weapon against the flood of sensational information. Are we truly witnessing reality as it is, or merely fragments of a narrative neatly crafted to guide public emotion? This question deserves to be asked before conclusions are frozen, because a 7-minute video is far too dense not to invite interpretation. If the core messages are "we are working hard" and Jin is still contributing despite being sick, have these two claims been supported by testable evidence, or are they merely impressions comfortable to believe? At this point, let us trace the origins of the information systematically. Where did the recording begin? Who was the first uploader? How are date and time verified? And is there a controlling statement from related parties? Without tracing the chain of sources, is it reasonable for the public to be trapped in an echo created by re-uploads without context? If metadata, alternate angles, or written statements are unavailable, why are we tempted to accept the brief recording as a full representation of reality? We must also weigh how cognitive bias works quietly behind the screen of enthusiasm. Does affection toward BTS make us quicker to affirm a heroic recovery narrative, while contrary signals are ignored? If the effect of confirmation bias grows stronger, should not the standard of proof be raised, not lowered? Why is emotional comfort so often confused with factual truth, when the two are not identical? Next, consider the dramaturgy of communication common in the global entertainment industry. Short duration, solidarity-toned sentences, and emphasis on collective effort often effectively spark engagement. But if these elements coincide with news of Jin's illness, is that pure spontaneity or a design calculated for empathetic resonance? Who benefits when mystery is left hanging? We ought to ask about the ethics of exposing personal health in the digital public sphere. Is mentioning Jin's contribution while he is unwell truly a form of appreciation, or does it instead create dangerous expectations? If the public increasingly glorifies sacrifice, will the reasonable boundary between dedication and recovery not blur further? And when that boundary blurs, who will be responsible when invisible pressure turns into a tangible burden? The circulation of information across platforms also demands caution. Clips from TikTok, re-uploads on YouTube, screenshots on Twitter/X, and compilations on other channels often travel faster than verification processes. If the flow is fragmentary, is it not reasonable to delay conclusions and demand official confirmation? Would it not be wiser to separate what is touching from what is verified? Even if the two may overlap, let us employ a set of practical verification questions. Who is the documented primary source? What is the time-place evidence? Where is the full transcript of the statements? How do cross-witness testimonies align? And when will related institutions issue a release? If even one link in the chain is loose, should not conclusions be postponed? If all links are tight, only then can public conviction stand more firmly. We also need to test the performative aspect in front of the camera. A faint smile, a worried gaze, or a short sentence can be perceived as authenticity, but could also be read as stage effect. Do we have methodology to distinguish spontaneity from choreography? For example, through consistency across recordings, chronology, and third-party statements? If not, why rush to choose the interpretation that feels most comforting? We must honestly state that the material we compiled came from various channels: TikTok, YouTube, Twitter/X, and other media, with uneven credibility. Therefore, is it not reasonable to mark conclusions as tentative while awaiting further verification? Until then, are readers willing to refrain from treating emotional narratives as final reality? Now, let us reflect on your own position. Do you believe this event